Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited to have Dr. Stephanie Lopez with me here today. We're going to be talking about all things anxiety and defense mechanisms and getting into the nitty gritty. So, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So we could go into the backstory of how we met, but we'll potentially save that for a little bit down the line as we get into our conversation. Can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing in the world?
Yes, I am a former NASA psychologist and certified breathwork facilitator, and I work primarily with high functioning women who are stuck in fight or flight, which is basically everyone. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuck in fight or flight, struggle with anxiety. Some of them are having panic attacks and they want to break free. Almost all of them also identify as a people pleaser or perfectionist, and it is the old me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Don't we always, it's kind of like we have to learn to overcome ourselves and then we can then teach others how to do the exact same thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's get a little bit into like what got you into this work and how you got started.
Yeah. I did nothing with psychology until I went into college, and I had an intro to psychology class, and then at that point I was on a medical field route, and I got hooked on psychology. I was like, I have to do this. I came
Yeah.
home, I told my mom, I'm like, I want to do psychology. I don't want to be a medical doctor anymore. And she's like, You can't. And that's
I'm
all
related. I can't wait to tell you the rest. We've never talked about this before. This
never.
is crazy. Go ahead, carry on. Yeah.
So I can't remember the exact time frame, but her aunt came down to visit and I talked to her aunt about it. I got her on board super easily, and then she convinced my mom to let me do what I wanted to do. And I actually went I went through my grad school program. I was not on like a therapy route or anything. I went to IO psychology, which is industrial organizational psychology or psychology for the workplace. And my first like big girl job was working at NASA, and I loved it. I still love it. I'm obsessed with NASA. It was an incredible place to work, and one of my first experiences there, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, completely changed my life more than anything that I had learned in grad school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
Yes. Even getting a doctorate in psychology, I had this experience in 5 days that changed everything for me. And so I'll just like put a pin in that and also say that I had this experience that I never forgot. And I feel like, I don't know, somehow it like connects with intuition for me. I did a training for the engineering group there, and I don't even remember what it was about, but somebody scheduled a meeting with me afterwards. And I thought, oh, okay, well, they probably have questions. And he came into my office and he said, You need to leave. You can have a greater impact outside the gates.
Wow.
And it like makes me a little bit teary eyed because that was probably 2014. And I never forgot that. I emailed him actually like the week I was leaving, and I just thanked him
Yeah.
because just the small things that we can say to people matter so much. And I'm saying that for anybody listening, what are you not telling somebody that you have thought even more than once, or even just once? Tell them,
Yeah.
because it could be the very thing that changes, like that seed planted. I never forgot it. And it gave me the courage because I was like, somebody besides me knows what I know to be true, which is I'm here. Can I curse on here? Or
Yeah.
I'm
Go,
here to
please.
fuck shit up. Okay. And I
Yeah.
got to get out of, I got to leave to be able to do that.
Yes, totally. I don't need the tape and the all the lines and yeah, I got to be able to
Yeah.
color outside the lines.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. And then you did.
Yeah, and now it took me a long time, and I think that was for reason too, because I was scared. And so there was a lot of fear there. But now I'm working with women every single day who feel a lot of fear. And I know it deeply because I've been there.
Yeah.
So 7 years later, I left, but pandemic happened. I had a baby all in the same week, and I had a 2 year old, and I was not okay, like very much not okay. And it was
Yeah.
that low was the thing that gave me the courage to live the life that I wanted and to leave. And my husband was so caught off guard because I loved working at NASA. And so he's like,
Yeah.
but you love your job. I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense, but I have to leave.
Yeah. How did you know for yourself that you had to leave? What was it?
I think that I didn't use this word before. You gave me the word actually like I think you said urge. Like I just know. And
Yeah.
I have to do it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, and you when you gave me the word that like it's an urge, I'm like, "Oh, yes. That
Yeah.
is what it is."
Totally. Just so
Yeah.
everybody knows who's listening,
Yeah.
Stephanie is a 4-6 emotional manifester. So you're getting two 4-6 emotional manifestors here on the podcast today. But yes, and that's, I love what you're saying about the idea of like, what is that? Oh my gosh. Well, you would know this because we're around the same age. It's Christina Aguilera. They say if you love something, let it go. And if it comes back for show, that's how you know. But it's
Yeah.
like so interesting, right? Because we can love something so much or we can have a connection to it and our body can still be urging us towards something else.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to share something very quick with you, which is that I also wanted to be a psychology major because I took Dr. Love's Psychology 101 in college at Penn State.
Yes.
And I told my dad, and I was like, I want to be a psychologist. And he was like, what are you going to do with that? Be a speech therapist. And then that's why I went the speech therapy route. So
Oh
when you
my
said that, I'm like,
gosh.
holy cannoli. I had the same experience as you, but I didn't
Yes.
have a cool aunt who came and I mean,
Right.
and I'm grateful for my experience. Thanks, Dad, for all the guidance. And simultaneously, I'm like, how different would my life have been if I had an aunt who came in and said,
Right.
nope, let's do it, you know?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe
That
I would
is
have
so
ended up
wild.
at the same point. Who knows? But
Who knows?
who knows?
You never know.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what was this 5-day workshop and like in terms of like the actual crux of the work and
Yeah.
what you're doing now with it. Because I want to
Yeah.
talk about, I went to one of your live experiences and it was amazing. So I want to kind of get into what that work is.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So, painting the picture, I am going in, and at the time, I would say high functioning anxiety. Like, I would burn the candle at both ends. I was worrying about everything that I could possibly worry about all the time. I felt broken at times.
Mm,
I felt like something was just wrong at the core. I'm going to go on a side tangent story real
yeah.
quick. When I was interviewing for NASA, I was standing and waiting because there was somebody interviewing before me, and I was chatting with two people who were already in the group. And I was open with them, and they asked, "Oh, like how are you feeling?" Maybe they said, "Are you nervous?" I can't remember. And I said, "I'm so nervous." And they said, "Just be yourself." And at the time, I had not really done inner work. I was in a psychology program, but it's just so different. I
Yeah.
had been to therapists here and there throughout my entire life, but really had not done the work. And that was probably the last thing that I wanted to hear because I didn't believe that if I showed myself that that would be anything that anybody wanted to see or interact with. I didn't have these words for it, but I was pretending all
Mm,
the time.
yeah.
I didn't really know, but I was put your best foot forward or whatever. Okay. So the picture is painted, and I keep hearing about this 5-day workshop over and over again, and I hear very different things. Like one person is like it's going to change your entire life. Another person's like it's the crying class. Another person like, well, he got divorced after he went, so just, you know, careful.
Hmm.
I'm like, what am I walking into?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
I I walk into this white room and everyone's in a circle, like an AA meeting or something. I've actually never
Yeah.
been to an AA meeting, but that's what I think that it looks
Sure.
like. Okay. And I'm like, Okay. I'm just going to come and take what I can from this. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I tend to be quite literal. So if somebody says something, I believe them.
Okay.
Okay. And so the facilitator was there were two facilitators. One of them I particularly was fond of. She was incredible. And one of the first things out of her mouth, I don't even know if I'm going to get the quote right, but was like the the way that you are responding, reacting, interacting with everyone is all based on how you feel about yourself.
Mhm.
And I took that literally. And then I immediately was like, shit.
Mhm. Yeah.
I I must not feel very good about myself because there's a lot of interactions that I don't love.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. I feel like you're gonna ask a question.
No, I just am writing down like little notes on everything that you're saying. And I'm thinking to myself, man, it's so good to be back in your energy thinking and talking about all of this. So, yes, carry on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hmm.
So, this 5-day experience is just s- hard to put into words. So, it shifted the way that I saw myself, it shifted the way that I saw people, and it shifted the way that I thought children should be raised. And I wasn't
Mm,
a mom. And I mentioned that part because that is a huge motivator for me is I don't want other people to feel broken like I did.
mm,
And that's my mission essentially. And if
yeah.
they have children, even better, because I know that if I work with them, that they are not going to raise their children in a way that will lead to you feeling broken.
Gosh, tearjerker right here. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you just by noon on day one, I have full body goosebumps right now. Like I don't even, you might even be able to see them. They're so strong. I knew. And so I guess it was an urge. Now I know I have that word.
Yeah.
I have to spread this to as many people as possible. That was the thought. That was like, I have to do this. Um, I don't even know what else to say about the workshop because it just is just it changed what I thought was possible. It changed all the things that I thought were broken about me were actually defense mechanisms. It showed me that ways that I was showing up every day trying to control was actually creating my anxiety. It just mind blown emoji just
Yeah.
over and over. And I couldn't imagine a life where I wasn't doing that with people all the time.
Wow. Yeah. I love I just want to say you have such a beautifully clear intuition when you know things. Sometimes it takes us, you said like, oh, it took me a while to actually like leave NASA, but
Yeah.
it's beautiful that you're able to hear that and listen to it and know the direction that you need to go in for yourself. So
Thank
I
you.
love that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
There was another person at NASA who came along. She was actually in my group, and there was only like 5 of us that doing the role that I was doing. And I think it was probably it must have been 2018 or 2019. And I did the retreat that you came to. I did a 3-day version. I mean, this is one of the times that I did it at NASA. And afterwards, she was just talking to me, oh, how'd it go? And I was just beaming. Like, I love this so much. And she's like, Steph, why don't you just do this? And, I already knew that that's what I needed to be doing. But what the story that I was telling myself at that point, 2018, 2019, is, well, I'll do it as my second career
Mm-hmm.
because, like, who leaves NASA? That doesn't make sense. But her validating that again, it was just like another person. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's two paths I feel like we can go down, and one of
Okay.
them is like, how did you take those steps? But I actually would love it if we could go a little bit into like, what are these defense mechanisms and
Yeah.
how, like, what is the actual work about? Because I didn't, I always knew that I have defense patterns and defense mechanisms. I also come from a highly defensive family,
Same.
as probably many of us do. But I mean, I kind of just thought in certain ways, I was like, well, this is just my personality. I'm just particular in these
Yes.
ways. And when I started to realize, like, oh, trying to protect myself, then
Yes.
I realized I'm like, oh, okay. And the beautiful thing, I just want to say, so this is a good time to insert this. My friend Alex, who is one of my dearest friends, I met her in
Yeah.
2018. She was telling me years ago, when we first met, 2018 time, she was like, I went to this workshop and it changed my life. And she always was talking about this workshop she went to that changed her life. And then I'm like, I met this woman, Stephanie. She reached out to me about my children's book because she found me on Instagram. She's like, that's cool. I'm like, I'm going to this workshop. And I think we took a picture together because I spoke at your workshop on human design. And she messaged me and she's like, what? What? Like, Dr. Steph, this is literally the workshop that changed my life. And now you're going through like this work. And it was really kind of a very cool full circle moment because so much of what she learned through the work, and it was, I think, with one of somebody
It
you
was,
partner with.
I think it was me and Laura, maybe Gabriella as well. It might have been the three
Yes.
of us that were all facilitating it. Yes.
Yes. And what's so interesting is there's the part that's like the defense mechanisms and all of the things
Yes.
that cause us to be defensive. But then on the other side, there's communication and
Mhm.
intentional communication. And
Yeah.
so much of what I've learned from Alex about how to communicate has actually been as a result of what she learned from you.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of this very cool full circle moment. So
Yeah.
I would
It's
love
so
if
beautiful the way the universe works.
totally. Yeah,
Like, what are the odds? We don't, from your book.
I know, of
And
all
then,
things.
and then I reached out to you, like, weird.
I know. I know.
Like,
It's
I
crazy.
have to connect with her. I don't know why, but here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, so defensiveness, you kind of alluded to it, but I just want the listeners to even hit pause for a moment. I'm going to ask you a question, then hit pause. What do you think defensiveness is? And let me silent. So most people I find this definition does not resonate with them at first because this is not how they've been thinking about it. Defensiveness is you protecting yourself from your own insecurities and negative emotions. Always. We're not
Mm,
protecting ourselves from anybody else. We're protecting ourselves from our own insecurities and negative emotions. And so it's like, even if you just pause and think, well, I don't have to protect myself from myself. That's kind of unnecessary, odd,
yeah.
not useful. And so when I sat down the first time and I took this survey on signs of defensiveness, I peeked at the person next to me and she had like nothing checked. Not literally nothing, but next to nothing. And I basically checked the whole page because, like you, Jess, I came from a family that was highly defensive in different ways. My mom versus my dad, very, different defenses were coming up. So I was very familiar with much of the list and I felt mortified, embarrassed. It kind of briefly reinforce like there is something wrong with me that I was able to check so many of these things. And what I tell my clients now, just in case they feel that, is the more that you check on this list, the more aware you are of how you're showing up in the world, and the more we have to work with, and the more opportunities you have to catch yourself.
Mm. There's kind of a level too in what you're saying of I'm like, and also like almost giving yourself compassion of like, congratulations, you learned how to survive by being defensive.
100%.
Yeah. Like, good
Yes.
on you for learning to take care of you maladaptively, but
Right.
you learned that the world is not safe in certain ways. So you're trying to protect yourself from having to feel those emotions. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So I know you asked a question about defensiveness. Did I
Mhm.
answer it?
Yeah, can we go
Okay.
into, are you open to share some of what a defense, like different defense
Yeah.
patterns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to share maybe the most shocking one to people.
Hmm.
Helping can be a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Usually
Hmm.
people are like, what on earth helping? And so I'll clarify this is helping when the other person isn't asking for it and they don't want it. So
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, why do we get defensive? Like I said, to avoid feeling our own insecurities. So if you think about helping, if I'm forcing myself to help someone, it's because if I worry about their problems, I don't have to deal with my own. All of this is subconscious. This is nobody's like consciously thinking, well, I'm going to like worry about their stuff so that I don't have to deal with my own. No, it's not like that. So that's one example. My personal favorite
Hmm.
is being critical. And I think most people recognize, oh, yeah, that's probably a defense mechanism, being, highly critical. Blaming is the most common one in a work setting. And so, just a quick note here, this is unintentionally created by a lot of organizations because they reinforce, well, we have to find somebody who's accountable. We have to hold somebody accountable. And then if accountability isn't there for everyone, it very easily can go into blaming this person or this department and not create the outcome that they actually want. Okay, back to other defense mechanisms. Um, Using humor, there's a list of over 40. So I'm just giving a
Yeah.
couple examples, but what it comes down to for all of them is that if like, I don't have to deal with my own inadequacies if I do this thing. But the secret is that they're just perceived inadequacies.
Yeah. Yeah. On a quick note on this,
Yeah.
I did comedy classes and I invited all my neighbors to come to my comedy performance last year. And I was on the
Yeah.
beach with some of my neighbors the other day and they were like, "Are you going to do comedy again?" And this and this. And I was like, I love it and I would love to do it in like a conscious way. It does feel like a lot of defense mechanism of like you're pain, you have pain and you feel broken. And so you're just trying to project humor to feel less pain. And it's a very interesting kind of
Yeah.
experience to have. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anything about defensiveness stand out to you, Jess?
With the humor stuff or in
Or
general around
just
what you
in
just said?
general? Yeah.
One of the things I've been actually thinking about a lot is the idea of helping because it's so easy. Like, I found it very interesting that you said that you were going into a medical profession. And I think it's so often, and I see this a lot, and I'm very conscious of this with myself. It was very easy for me when I was in the like beginning part of my career as a speech therapist to very much attach my identity to helping everyone else
Mhm.
and thinking that that was like all good. But what I didn't realize is I was not looking at shame that I had inside of myself. Um, all of those things. And I was so deeply unhappy,
Mhm.
but I was helping everyone. So it was like really hard to come. It like makes me a little like sad. It was
Yeah.
really hard for me to understand why I was doing things that were helping people. And even in the beginning of my business, it was
Yeah.
like I'm going to help everyone and the whole world is going to be good. And I didn't know how to have boundaries. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
communicate. I wouldn't say I had a lot of this, but I did have clients that like were relying on me to help them, and I that was
Save them.
reinforced and saved them. And it's
Mhm.
been very interesting because as I've done this work, like even with speech therapy, as I've gone back into it, I approach it very differently now.
I love that.
I used to feel responsible, and I'm like, I'm just here to do what I can do. I'm not here to be perfect. And that was my biggest thing. Like you said, the perfectionism. I
Yeah.
was like, I have to be perfect. I have to be the best speech therapist. And what it did was it actually created me running away
Mm.
over and over again. And I'd turn towards something and then I'd run from it because the perfectionism and the shame and I didn't want to face myself. And
Mm.
ironically, even in grad school, like it was always, they always say with speech therapists, it's like this type A, like everybody's got to be perfect. And it is, it's the culture. So I can see now when I meet other therapists, I'm like, I see in me why I was attracted to this
Yes.
profession and maybe not attracted because you know, didn't necessarily go down that route, but I can see
Right.
why I went that way. I can also see why I burned out doing intuitive work in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what I've learned through your work is it's less about what and more about how I'm showing up or not facing my emotions or turning towards myself. So I
Yes.
love the idea and like the helping thing. Like I come from a family that's like constantly, well, here, I'll send you this and take this supplement and do that. But what it actually does for me is like, there's certain things like with acne. I've struggled with acne for a long time. In the
Oh,
past, my
yeah.
skin's gotten so much better, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want, I know you think it's helpful to send me stuff about
Yes.
acne, but you're
Right.
actually reinforcing there's something wrong with me by
Yes.
putting all your focus on me. So I actually have found, and that's where I've had to be like, oh, I get to use boundaries. Oh, I get to say
Mhm.
yes, this, or no, not that, or whatever. And
Yes.
also recognize like that's your defense mechanism that,
Yes.
so that's why this for me, this work that you are doing is so helpful because I can take things less personally. I can be less defensive. I can see
Yeah.
the patterns. And then I have choice if I can see it.
Yes. And that choice piece is really hard for people to embody until
Hmm.
they're in person. When I will do the same content virtually. And then when somebody comes in person and they have the experience of like, holy smokes, I'm choosing all of it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if I am, then I get to choose not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And I think too, we're raised in whether it's like work, we're defensive in our work or home or whatever it may be. Like you can't see the choice because you're constantly in protection mode.
Constantly. Yeah. I absolutely resonate with that. Yeah. And there was something that you said, oh, the boundaries. I
Yeah.
had no boundaries.
Yeah.
None. None.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'll share this. If anybody resonates with not having boundaries, there was someone who said to me, I was working on them. So I said no. She asked me to do something. I said no. And she was so grateful. And she said, I'm so glad you said no. When you say no, I trust your yes more.
Yes.
And that was shocking to me because I hadn't considered that by showing up as a people pleaser, people actually didn't trust what I was saying.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Mhm.
I would love to talk about boundaries and what they are and people pleasing because I will say I've noticed with a lot of women that's something that always made me nervous because I would know when people are like, yeah, uh-huh, yeah. I'm like, I'd rather you tell me that I'm doing something that's upsetting you because
Yeah.
then I can change it
Mhm.
versus you trying to spare my feelings. Like, I'd rather know so we can take action
Right.
versus feeling like, yeah, no, it's all, oh, yeah, okay, no, just tell me, So I'd love to
Yeah.
hear about like what are boundaries and how do we set them? Because I do think that can get very convoluted in the personal development space.
Yeah. Well, even just that piece that you said at the 2 day, we talk about how do I communicate non-defensively because people pleasing is defensive communication. And
Hmm.
it's actually this can feel like a shock to people's system when I say it. So just know that it's manipulation because I'm
Yeah,
trying to make sure that you don't feel something that I don't want you to feel. I'm
yeah,
trying to control you.
yeah,
And I'm acknowledging that that's how I was showing up. I had no idea. So I was talking to Jess before we started. Sorry. I just want to say, like, once you see this, you cannot unsee it because basically the whole world is showing up defensively and they have no idea. They think it's their personality. I thought it was my personality.
yeah,
Boundaries. A lot of people will say, well, I don't know how to set a boundary. And I think it's less about that
yeah,
and more about am I willing to, because it
Yeah.
feels really uncomfortable. Because for instance, if we just say no, I mean, that's a very small boundary. Like, you know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times though, people set boundaries where they're trying to control somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's the misstep. Always the boundary is about what you're going to do if something continues to happen, because you have control over you, and then you can take care of what you need to. So, I don't know, maybe we should give an example here. Um, like a kid's come up in my mind, but like maybe do you have an example coming to mind and we can workshop it?
Yeah. Let's go with an example of the only things that are coming are like examples from my life that I don't necessarily want to use.
Yeah.
Okay, let's use an example of like somebody with their partner around the house, constantly feeling like their partner is never cleaning up or not like
Yeah.
holding up their end of the bargain with house stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I might approach this in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I learned this acronym. CPR stands for content relation, no, sorry, it's content pattern relationship. And this is coming up right now because if most people have a conversation about the content. But for instance, if you've had that conversation and then things keep happening, even when the person agreed not to, then it becomes a pattern.
Yep.
And that's the conversation we need to have. And then if you have that conversation, or maybe you skip that part and then it starts to impact the trust in the relationship, then that's the conversation to have.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wanted to mention that because it's not quite as simple as, I wouldn't jump to setting a boundary before having the conversation. So right now, let's assume you've had a conversation. You clearly asked for what you want. I say clearly because most of the time people don't clearly ask for what they want. They just think the other person should know.
Yeah.
And I have felt that before. I will acknowledge that. I'm like, they should
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But they don't. So you can have the conversation or not. And so you've had that conversation, you've talked about the pattern, they've agreed to do something, whether it's, let's say, um, take out the trash or do empty the dishwasher, load the dishwasher. And it's just like not like not happening.
Hmm.
Um, the boundary, well, I'm trying to think of a good one there, because if it was something laid around, you know what I would say? If it was like, I don't know, something on an end table or something, I would set a boundary like, hey, babe, my recollection is that we've talked about this a few times, that you're not going to leave stuff here. Is that what you remember? And assuming he says yes, I'm like, okay, can you pick this up with today?
Yeah.
Yes or no? If not, I'm going to toss it out.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. I like it.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's kind of a silly one, like if something is around the house.
But I think something that you just said is important, which, well, everything you said was important, but like there's an important piece, which is also about having something being time bound.
Hmm.
Can you do this by this time? Because I think it's more of a, like you're saying, it's like if then, if
Yeah.
we do this,
Yeah.
then or if we don't do this, then this is the action that I'm going to take on my end.
Right. Yeah.
And that's important because if we have no time bound anything to it, it'll just potentially carry on
Yes.
for
Yes.
forever.
Something I always like to mention with boundaries is self reflection is very important in terms of, am I being rigid about this?
Oof. Yeah.
Because rigidity is defensiveness.
Yeah.
And people very commonly mix that up, because next to no one is talking about defensiveness.
Yeah.
People are talking about boundaries. And so the rigidity is like being inflexible depending on a situation.
Yeah.
That's really, really important
Yeah.
in all aspects. If I'm never flexing from a certain position, no matter who I'm interacting with, what situation I'm in, that's an indication there's fear.
Yeah.
And so I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to toss that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like I'm just thinking too, like if you're being super rigid, it's like, is there a need that's not being met that you're trying to use the thing on the end table when really like you just want love and connection with your partner and you don't
Right.
feel loved when they don't. So it's like it's layered, right? Like
It's
there
so
can be,
layered.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
It's interesting too. I'm just thinking about like I know if you probably asked like certain people in my life, there's like if you asked like my closest friends, they would probably be like, you're not like you can be defensive, but like in terms of our relationship, you're not. And it's because there's a level of like, I feel safe with you. I feel like
Yeah.
I can tell you anything. I can be honest with you if I don't like something, that kind of thing. And then probably the people in my life who are like, well, you're highly defensive. There's a level of like, well, I don't feel fully safe in this. But like you said, it's like, am I unwilling to meet my own emotions as
Yeah.
well with this
Yeah.
relationship? But what's that balance? Because, like, as an example, if there's like a person or group of people in my life that I'm like, well, I'm highly defensive, but if I'm honest with them, they yell at me, they scream at me, they whatever it may be, and it's people like, how do you approach that?
Yes. Okay. First, defensiveness breeds defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is having an experience and they think somebody else is being defensive, always the first question to ask is, am I being defensive? And it could be vice versa, right? Like you're
Yeah,
showing up with friends non defensively, and then in a situation where you feel very defensive, not only do you not feel safe, but they're probably being very defensive.
yeah,
And so it's all being brought up in you. With more practice, you have more choice over that for sure. Okay. Your question was, if you're in a situation where somebody's highly defensive, what do you do?
yeah. Like, how do you manage that? It's like they're defensive, I'm defensive. Like, where do we start? Especially if people are not willing to look at their own
Mhm.
defensiveness.
This is very good. Yes. All right. I think I would go in a number of different directions depending on the person. So I wonder if we could come up with an example of like their behavior. So I do well with like really specific.
Y- Let
Yeah.
me give you something
Okay.
specific because I think you talked about this in terms of work.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you two examples because it's very interesting.
Okay.
One example is I worked in a place where everyone was defensive and it was
Okay.
a lot of like there was a lot of deflection and blame. The
Yes.
people who were not doing their jobs, who were higher up, were essentially projecting onto the people who were doing their jobs.
Mm,
But I think there was a defensiveness of like, wow, these people are really good at what they're doing. We're not pulling our weight and doing what we're supposed to do. And so we're going to deflect, right, and blame
yeah.
onto them.
Yeah.
Mirrored with when I left that position, I started with a new position and I could feel myself going in being like, okay, it's going to be the same rodeo. I got to be kind of protective. In this new position, they're super supportive. And I feel they're like, how can we help you? We're on your team. Like it's a very different
Wow.
situation, right? And I'm like, oh, I can let my guard down because the leaders are open.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the question is like, if that's, I guess that would be the example is like leaders who are not open,
Yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
approach that?
Yeah. Okay. I will say I am fairly ballsy.
Yeah.
So I have had
Manifester.
conversations, huh?
Manifester. Yes.
I have had conversations with levels of leadership that probably most people would not.
Yeah.
So I'll say that first because I have a like a story in my mind what I'm about to say. People are like, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, you can.
We'll give you options. You absolutely
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where that communication comes in. And one important thing that most people don't do before giving feedback, ask for permission. Okay.
Mm.
So if I were in this situation, I would personally find the person in leadership that I felt most comfortable with. Okay. That even if I've had zero interactions, there's just something that when I'm in their presence, I feel a little safer than somebody else. Now, that person needs to be doing the behavior too, because I'm going to give them feedback. I'm not going to be talking about somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to that person and I would say something like, hey, maybe Joe, I don't know, I'm just throwing out a random name. Um, I've been wanting to ask you something for a while, but I've hesitated. Is it okay for me to talk to you about an observation? Okay, so we're getting buy-in first. Maybe you're at, I don't know, so many things are virtual these days, but maybe you're in the lunch hall and he's like, I actually have a meeting in 3 minutes. I can't do that right now. Then I would say, how's tomorrow at 4? And try to nail down a time. Okay. So asking permission, super important. You'll notice, and I know that you know what I'm doing. Before I said that, I hesitated because I'm just sharing more of my experience, which shows that I'm coming from a vulnerable place, a
Yeah.
transparent place. I'm not trying to be like, you're doing stuff wrong, dude.
Yeah.
Right? I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, like, there's something that feels really important for me to talk about. Can we talk about it?"
Yeah.
Okay. So you said a lot of deflection and blame. I would find a very specific example in that situation to be able to bring it back because I think that people tend to, if we bring like a global, like, "Oh, this is happening," it doesn't, the lack of concreteness, people can
Mm.
breeze over it, right?
Yeah.
So, hopefully, in that situation, you would have a specific example in mind. So, you've asked for feedback. Let's say that the person wants the feedback, and you might even say, I I'm coming from a place where I want this organization to be working as good as possible." Like, you're sharing your intention for why. You're not trying to be a jerk. You're not trying to tell leadership they're doing a bad job because they have a lot on their shoulders. You're wanting things to be working effectively. And so, Jess, do you have an example, like a specific example that I could use in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody sent an email saying this needs to be on a Sunday night, saying this needs to be done by tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock so I can get my job done, and not giving someone enough time, but then
Okay.
making it feel like it's that person's fault. They need to do it now.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. So I noticed that you sent an email at Sunday at 9 p.m. with a clear request for me to have work done by Monday morning. Can I ask you a question? So I'm asking again, and of course they're going to be like, yeah. Was there something that you saw that I did that resulted in such a short turnaround time? And
Mm,
so we're getting curious
yeah.
first. Give me the context, paint the picture, because at the end of my career at NASA, I worked with leadership, um, like all of the directors for HR, and there was so many things that in HR we didn't get, and being able to see it from that level, it's helpful. So you're never,
Yeah.
obviously, if you're not in leadership, you're not going to know for sure, but get curious first. Was there anything that I did?
Yeah.
Um, in general, is the expectation always for me to have a turnaround time of whatever it was on the weekend? Is there anything that I don't know about the situation that would be helpful for me to
Mm,
understand? Get all that. And maybe you have a request. A few things could come out of this. One, it could be like, this person is not going to change the way they are. And then you get to ask yourself, do I want to work somewhere like this?
yeah. Hmm.
And you might also have the opportunity to make a request.
Yeah.
Can I ask in the future that I always have at least 3 hours in the morning on Monday or whatever? I'm making this up to get this
Yeah.
kind of task done. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll pause there.
You know what's coming to my mind, and I'm like, kind of want to. I know I talked about this in another podcast, but I'm like, you got to go find Stephanie's work to know there is a certain level of self love that you have for yourself in order to. If somebody then comes at you and says, "Yeah, no, you need to have this all done at 9 p.m. on a Sunday," that you're not just like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that," and then go and complain because it's not what you want. There's a
Right.
certain level of I love myself, I'm taking care of myself, and I'm going to choose something that is nourishing for me.
I matter
Um,
more than that.
I matter. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what's
100%.
coming to my mind because I'm like, everything you're saying, I love it because it's curiosity, which will de-arm someone,
Yeah.
right? And you have to love yourself enough to be okay
Yes.
moving on
And
if you have to.
this is the work that brings that to you for me 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
making that
that's,
observation.
yeah, I wanted to say too for anybody who's like, this is super interesting. I'm very curious. Like, these are the core tenets of what you're teaching too, is like a very deep sense of like, yes, the defensiveness is the top layer and the communication, well, maybe the communication is like the layer down, right? But like you really are bringing people home to themselves and like the the word that's coming to me is like the godliness within you is like I matter, I'm important, I love myself, and like therefore I get to choose and curate what is in my life and what is not in my life.
Yes. Yes. And I don't have to make myself wrong for that either. And if
Yes.
I fear that that's selfish, then we'll work on that too.
Yes. Yes. And
Yes.
also knowing that regardless of if somebody shoots accusations at me of whatever, because I choose in response to what they're choosing, that I
Yeah.
don't have to believe those stories. I can still
Yes.
believe what I believe about me.
Yes. 100%. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Cause I think it's easy. Like the image I'm getting in my mind is like, it's easy to like be trying to just like juggle balls and you're like, okay, yep. Okay, yep. Let me do this. I'll do that. I'll have that conversation. And it's like at the end of the day, it's really like, do you love yourself enough to put yourself into situations that are going to reflect that love back to you? Or are you going to keep putting yourself in situations where that mirror is going to keep asking you until you have enough pain to come home to yourself?
Yes. Yes. I feel like much of this gig on earth is to come back to yourself.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
maybe it's the whole point.
I think so.
Because
Yeah.
when we do, I said that to somebody recently and they're like, no, I feel like we're here to help people. And I'm like, oh, that's part of it. That's absolutely part of it. But until we come back to ourselves, we're not doing what we're here to do,
Yeah.
which is often helping somebody in some way, not in a defensive way.
Yeah, and it's like also too, I'm just thinking about like it's exactly what your story, and this is I think the story most people go through is I was this way.
Yeah.
I had the credentials. I was the psychologist.
Yep.
I had an experience. I saw myself in a new way, and I
Hmm.
had to reorganize who I was. And now here's who I am on the other side of it.
Yes.
And now I'm actually helping people not through effort and self abandoning. I'm
Yes.
helping people through being driven by to keep making my own self better and to keep growing and to keep loving me. Because when I do, my cup then runs over versus the
Yeah.
model we've been taught, which is empty your cup as much as humanly possible, people please, try to be perfect, and then come out depleted and on the other side,
Hmm. Hmm.
never have time for yourself and then retire and die.
Yeah. I was going to say regret your life, but yes.
Anyways, not die. You're not going to die if you retire, but you know what I'm saying? It's like on the other side of it, it's like you kind of like then look at yourself and like, what have I been doing? What have I created? But it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be
No,
80 and have 1 year left of your life and be like, I'm going to turn inward and make this the best year ever.
my oldest client was 79.
Wow.
Yep.
Love that.
It's never too late.
Never.
I share that a lot because it's very common when people do the work with me for them to say, I wish I found this fill in the blank number of years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago. And I get that.
Yeah.
And it's never too late. And I wasn't doing it 10 years ago. So I mean,
Yeah.
I was really embodying it for myself, but didn't have this business. So, but
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
little
I
tangent.
I will say because I think this is a really great place to invite people to follow you and follow your work and start looking into this is like I would recommend everyone go to something that Stephanie does. Like it truly like it's funny. When did I come? I think I came beginning of
Beginning of May.
okay, beginning of May. Yeah, I mean, it completely because I was going through a bunch of stuff at that point in time, and it's like I took very different action than I ever would have taken in the past, because in the past, and it was perfect timing because you had invited me a few weeks earlier and I wasn't able to come,
Yeah.
and I was able to make it to the May one, and I was going through some like really, really big rocky stuff in my life, and I was able to completely handle things differently and pull back my own power and be like, I have to love me. I have to stop outsourcing love and approval in other places. And it's like literally changed my life. So I would recommend anyone. And to be honest, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, I don't know. It's not far. I'm going to drive. I love Steph. I'm probably defensive in some kind of way. And then, was able to see it very differently. I feel like this work could literally help anyone, even if you just notice you tense up around your boss, you tense up around your parents or your kids or your partner, like that tension and that squeeze is just an invitation to be like, it doesn't have to be like this, and I can learn some tools so my life feels easier, and I feel more at peace with myself and the world around
Mhm.
me, which is ultimately why we want others to change their behaviors, is so that we can feel good.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
ultimately this is about learning, ooh, thumbs up. This is about learning how to feel good first, so then you don't have to try to get it from anyone else but you. But then you also
Yes.
curate your life so that it reflects that back to you in the first place.
Yes. 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 All of that.
That's
Oh,
my plug for Dr. Stephanie's work. So, how can
thank
people
you.
find you and work with you?
Best place to find me is on Instagram at Dr. Stephanie Lopez, Dr. Stephanie Lopez. I'm also on Facebook. Technically, I'm on TikTok, but I haven't done anything on there like in years. So I'm not really there. Don't message me
Okay.
there.
Okay. I'm going
Yeah.
to link all this in the show notes too so people
Okay.
can find it.
Thank you so much.
You have a free webinar people can do to start getting introduced to this work, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So, my free webinar is my 4 step process for you to break free from anxiety. And as you've heard, this goes well beyond anxiety. However, we got to narrow in on something so that people know it's for them. So, that webinar I can give you the link for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you listen to this, you're probably similar to me: perfectionism, anxiety, high achiever, people pleasing, anything in that bucket. I am telling you, this will change your life. So, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thanks for
Thank
being a
you.
part of this conversation. Everybody out there, make it a great day, and I will see you back here on the next episode of the podcast.